Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today we're tackling a really fundamental way we often see ourselves in our lives. We're diving into this idea that, well, many of us can fall into a pattern of subconsciously waiting for a rescue. Like we're playing a supporting role in our own movie,
Yeah.
hoping for the hero to arrive.
Right. Waiting for that external fix.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to explore how to flip that script,
Yeah.
how to step into the role of the active author of our own story and stop waiting on the sidelines.
That's a powerful starting point. And it immediately brings up, I think, a central tension we all navigate, that deep human desire to belong, to be accepted,
Yeah.
often pulling against our equally strong need to live authentically. It's that constant balancing act, isn't it? Fitting in versus truly being ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's really the core of what we're going to unpack today. We'll be navigating self-discovery, the crucial and sometimes tricky terrain of self-acceptance.
Definitely tricky.
The surprising strength found in solitude, and ultimately how each of you can define what personal success and genuine happiness truly mean for you, not for anyone else.
Good distinction.
Okay, let's dive right into this whole idea of the rescuer mentality.
Yeah, let's. What's interesting is just how deeply this narrative is woven into our culture. You think about the stories we consume, movies, myths.
Correct.
There's often that central figure who arrives to save the day. It's almost this archetypal blueprint that can subtly shape how we see ourselves and our own challenges.
So we sort of absorb it unconsciously.
I think so. We might find ourselves kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for a specific event or maybe a particular person to just swoop in and fix things or finally unlock our happiness.
Right, and the underlying message in our source material is pretty clear on this. Placing our hopes on some external savior, well, it's so often a path to disappointment.
It really is.
It keeps us in a reactive mode, doesn't it? Always waiting, rarely actually taking control. The real shift seems to come when we decide to rewrite that narrative ourselves.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about recognizing our own agency, our own power.
Agency, okay.
Instead of seeing ourselves as like secondary characters in someone else's story.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging our capacity to be the driving force in our own experiences. Now, this isn't about isolation or being selfish.
Yeah.
It's more a fundamental recognition of our own power and our inherent ability to shape our lives. As our sources point out, the resources, the strength, the solutions, they largely reside within us.
Okay, so we're letting go of the idea of waiting for the cavalry to arrive. But what are the underlying reasons we might even fall into that pattern? Why wait? Our material talks a lot about the powerful pull of wanting acceptance.
Ah, yes. This brings up a really important aspect of, well, human psychology. That fundamental need for connection and validation. Feeling like we belong is it's deeply ingrained in us.
Sure, that makes sense.
However, this very natural desire can sometimes become so intense that we start making compromises. Compromises that chip away at our authenticity, all in the name of feeling accepted.
Yeah, and the examples really hit home. Agreeing to do things you genuinely dislike just to be part of the group.
Done that.
Or investing in a certain image clothes, stuff that doesn't really reflect your style or values just to fit in. Or even like echoing opinions that aren't really yours.
Exactly. All for that sense of belonging. And it's interesting to think about the ripple effect of this constant performance.
What do you mean?
Well, our sources highlight how this outward focus, this constant search for approval, actually creates a growing distance between who we are and who we're pretending to be.
Oh.
We become so focused on meeting what we think are external expectations that we lose touch with our own internal landscape, our real desires, our genuine thoughts, the things that actually spark joy for us.
It's like constructing this carefully curated image, right?
Yeah.
And the more layers we add to please others,
The further we get from our own core.
yeah. The material even touches on this profound sense of loneliness that can come up.
Even when surrounded by people.
Especially then sometimes.
Yeah.
This feeling of being adrift, lost amidst all those expectations. Our genuine identity gets buried under this weight of trying to conform, socially, professionally.
Wow. That feeling of being lost. That's often a key signal, isn't it, that we've strayed too far?
It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
So the crucial question then becomes, how do we start finding our way back? Back to that authentic core. Our sources really emphasize embarking on a journey of self-discovery.
Okay, so what does that journey of self-discovery actually look like? It sounds a bit vague, maybe.
It can feel that way at first,
Mm-hmm.
but think of self-discovery as like recalibrating your internal compass.
Okay.
It's about turning your attention inward,
Hmm.
really exploring the unique terrain of your own mind, your specific thought patterns, your individual way of processing things, that inherent nature that exists beneath all the social graces we learn.
So finding out who you are underneath it all. Pretty much. Identifying the core elements of your personality stripped bare from external influences as much as possible.
And once we start to get a clearer picture of that internal landscape, then comes self-acceptance. That feels like another huge step,
Yeah.
maybe even harder.
It is a profound step, and yet often challenging. Self-acceptance isn't about suddenly loving every single part of yourself overnight. That's unrealistic.
Right.
It's more about acknowledging your whole self, the strengths, yes, but also the weaknesses, the parts you admire, and the parts you might find difficult without judgment.
Without beating yourself up about them.
Exactly. It's about resisting that constant societal pressure to fit into some predefined mold. Our sources beautifully link this to genuine self-love, suggesting that even those traits we see as, let's say, less desirable,
Mm-hmm.
once accepted, they can become sources of learning and even growth. You can transform perceived flaws into strengths sometimes.
So it's not about pretending imperfections don't exist,
Ah,
but acknowledging they're part of being human, maybe finding lessons in them. Now, the material also frames self-love as a daily commitment. That sounds like work.
it is ongoing work, absolutely. It's not a destination you just arrive at, like, okay, done.
Right.
It's an ongoing practice. In this context, self-love involves consistently paying attention to your inner world, understanding your emotional reactions, examining your behaviors, observing your thoughts with curiosity rather than harsh criticism.
Especially the thoughts society might label unacceptable.
Precisely those. What's particularly insightful is the emphasis on prioritizing self-knowledge over blindly following the crowd or popular trends.
Which, as our sources point out, can sometimes mean taking a more solitary path. And I think that idea of being alone can feel quite scary for a lot of people.
That fear is totally understandable. We're social creatures. However, our sources offer a really valuable reframe here. Solitude isn't necessarily a punishment or a sign you're isolated. It's actually a potential gateway to greater self-understanding and ultimately liberation.
Liberation.
How so? Well, true self-knowledge often requires creating space, stepping back from the constant noise of external opinions and expectations. It's in facing our inner landscape, acknowledging our internal conflicts, our fears that we often discover a deeper sense of freedom.
So like peeling back layers of conditioning. All those societal labels and categories we pick up.
Exactly. Those labels, I'm this type of person, or I should be like that.
Yeah.
While sometimes they give a sense of belonging or make navigating society easier, they can also be incredibly limiting if they don't truly reflect our individuality.
So the advice is,
Our sources encourage us to actively resist being boxed in by these external definitions. Instead, cultivate and celebrate your unique identity. In a world that often pushes conformity, truly knowing and embracing yourself becomes this powerful act of differentiation.
and that process, stepping into our individuality, it might mean our paths naturally diverge from friends, right? The material mentions embracing solitude and independent journeys.
Yes, and this is a really natural, often necessary consequence of pursuing your own unique goals. Think about it. Your friends have their own dreams, their own paths.
True.
It's just unrealistic to expect everyone to stay on the exact same track forever. So your own individual goals will often require making choices that lead you down different roads. And yeah, this can lead to periods of solitude.
But the key takeaway here, reading between the lines of our sources, is to reframe that aloneness. It's not a burden, it's not failure.
Not at all. It's an integral, often essential part of that individual journey, part of self-discovery, part of growth.
So it's about shifting perspective from needing constant external connection to actually appreciating your own company.
Precisely. Discovering that ability to thrive independently, it unlocks this deeper self-reliance. And paradoxically, that often allows us to connect with those profound joys that truly resonate with us individually.
And the material makes a really important distinction between unwanted isolation and this deliberate chosen solitude. That nuance feels key.
Absolutely crucial. Unwanted isolation, feeling lonely, that can be really tough, even damaging.
Yeah.
But deliberate solitude, what our sources sometimes call conscious solitude, that's a powerful tool for self-reflection, for growth. Historically, many great thinkers, artists, innovators, They intentionally sought out solitude.
To think, to create.
Exactly, to cultivate ideas, unlock potential.
Mm.
Our modern discomfort with being alone can sometimes blind us to its huge benefits.
Benefits like having the space to actually process information without constant external noise.
Yeah.
That idea of filtering out the junk.
Yes, allowing valuable knowledge and insights to really sink in. It's a deliberate stepping back from the constant demands, creating a sort of mental sanctuary.
Sanctuary where boredom might actually be useful.
Weirdly, yes. Boredom can become a catalyst for creativity, for deeper self-awareness. By intentionally reducing the external buzz, we give our minds space to wander inward, explore our thoughts, our feelings, that whole inner landscape.
Okay. And as those external friendships might naturally shift, the source material offers a really interesting idea. Cultivating a friendship with your own success. What does that mean?
It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it? Think of it like befriending your ambitions, your goals, your achievements.
Okay.
Allowing that internal drive, that desire for accomplishment to become a constant, reliable companion. It's about nurturing your own intrinsic motivation and letting that guide you towards fulfillment, defined by your own values, not someone else's.
Which leads us very naturally into this deeply personal territory, defining what success and mental stability actually mean for each of us as individuals.
And this is where we truly take back our power. Our sources strongly warn against just blindly adopting popular definitions of happiness or success, the stuff you see online or what other people seem to value.
Because it might not fit us.
Exactly. Without our own internal compass, we risk chasing an ideal that isn't authentically ours, leaving us feeling perpetually unsatisfied.
So it all comes back to that internal exploration again. Asking those sometimes tough but essential questions. What truly brings me fulfillment? What does success actually look like through my own eyes?
Precisely. Not according to some external benchmark. It's about learning to trust that inner voice, that gut feeling when we're making decisions, especially about these really core parts of life. The real answers aren't out there. They're in here.
Within each of us. Okay, so say we've done some of that important self-reflection. How do we then translate those insights into actual tangible life changes? Our material gives some practical steps here.
It does. It suggests starting with some really direct questions to yourself. Why do I really want change? What specifically needs to be different for me to live my ideal life? What do I genuinely enjoy and what consistently drains me?
Getting really honest.
Super honest. And then, crucially, acting in alignment with those reflections. Maintaining, as the sources put it, unwavering loyalty to yourself.
Loyalty to yourself. I like that. Trusting your own internal guidance system.
Exactly. And look, change can feel overwhelming, right? So the suggestion is to focus on one key area of life at a time.
Don't try to overhaul everything at once.
Please don't. Develop an action plan, but make it involve small, manageable, consistent steps. Remember, meaningful progress is often gradual. Those big transformations rarely happen overnight.
Right, small steps add up. And it's so critical to personalize that whole approach, isn't it? What works for one person
might be totally wrong for another. Absolutely. There's no magic formula, no universal blueprint for personal growth.
So experiment.
Yes. Experiment with different strategies, schedules, habits, resources like books or routines, maybe seeking support. Find what genuinely resonates with your individual preferences, your rhythms. Embrace your unique way of operating and just forge your own path.
Okay. Finally, the source material touches on cultivating inner joy and love. It suggests that a lack of these often stems from a poor relationship with ourselves.
That connection is incredibly insightful, I think. When we intentionally make space for that solitude we talked about, it becomes even more vital to actively nurture internal sources of joy and love.
How do we do that?
Well, consciously savoring simple pleasures, intentionally guiding your heart towards creating a joyful daily experience, moment by moment. These become powerful antidotes to worry and that sort of underlying emptiness that can creep in.
And even something seemingly small, like dedicating just 15 minutes a day to an activity you genuinely enjoy,
can make a huge difference over time. It's about consciously weaving those moments of pleasure, of engagement, into the fabric of your daily life.
Makes sense.
And reframing alone time as an opportunity for growth through self-education is also key.
Learning stuff.
Yeah. Our sources encourage exploring subjects that genuinely spark your curiosity, taking ownership of nourishing your mind, recognizing that learning isn't just for school, it's for life, and there's real value in pursuing knowledge that interests you.
Okay, so bringing all these insights together then. The central message of our deep dive today really seems to be that true, lasting fulfillment, It doesn't come from waiting for that external rescue
Definitely not.
or from constantly seeking validation from the outside world. It really originates from within. Through that continuous journey of self-awareness, genuine self-acceptance,
Hmm.
and having the courage to define and walk our own unique path.
Precisely. It's about recognizing and fully embracing our own inherent agency, our power, and taking ownership of the story of our lives.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider long after this deep dive ends. Think about one specific area of your life where you might be maybe unconsciously holding back,
Hmm.
perhaps waiting for someone or something external to step in and, save you.
Just one small area.
Yeah. And then ask yourself, what small but significant step could you intentionally take today to actively step into the role of the protagonist in that particular part of your story?
Remember, each of you possesses this incredible capacity for self-discovery and for creating a life that is deeply meaningful and authentically yours, on your own terms.